Welcome back, everyone, to the Humor Career Insights podcast, your guide to navigating career success in a world that's changing faster than ever. I'm your host, Vache, a certified professional career coach, human resources consultant, and founder of Humor. Whether you're just starting out, climbing the ladder, or pivoting after years in the workforce, this podcast is here to equip you with the insights and strategies you need to thrive. This season, we're tackling a topic that's on everyone's mind: the future of work, how to stay relevant and thrive. From the rise of AI and automation to the shifting demands of leadership and the skills that will set you apart, we're diving deep into what it takes to not just survive, but thrive. To help us unpack this, I'll be joined by some incredible guests, industry experts, thought leaders, and professionals who are shaping the future of work. Together, we'll explore practical strategies, emerging trends, and actionable advice to help you stay ahead of the curve. So whether you're looking to future-proof your career, embrace new opportunities, or simply stay inspired, this season is for you. Let's get ready to thrive in the future of work, starting now.
This podcast is proudly sponsored by Go My Code. Go My Code is a leading tech education institution dedicated to bridging the digital skills gap across Africa and equipping learners with the skills to thrive in the ever-changing digital world. Want to launch your career in tech or future-proof your skills in a tech-driven world? Go My Code is your go-to partner. Get hands-on training, work on real-world projects, and join a global tech community that supports your growth. No experience, no problem. Our courses are designed to be accessible, practical, and job ready. Start your journey today by calling us on 0208 730 470 or visit us at gomycode.com/ke.
Today, I'm thrilled to welcome Wadzanai Garwe, who is a dynamic global leader, economist, and humanitarian advocate whose work embodies her name's meaning: reconcile or live in harmony in Shona. As president of the Federation of International Civil Servants Association, FICSA, she champions the rights and development of international civil servants within the UN system. With a career spanning continents, Wadzanai has dedicated herself to addressing critical global issues such as human rights, gender equity, HIV/AIDS awareness, and sustainable development. Her powerful voice and personal stories inspire audiences to drive transformative changes, fostering collaboration and bridging cultural divides. Today, she will share actionable insights on how international civil servants can not only survive, but thrive in the future of work. Today, she'll share actionable insights on how international civil servants can not only survive, but thrive in the future of work. Wadzi is joining us today from New York over the phone. So if there are any challenges with the connection, please bear with us. Wadzi, welcome to Humor Career Insights.
Thank you so much, Vache. I'm so excited to be here, and I'm even in awe of the introduction you gave for me. Thank you so much. I'm very, very excited to be here.
Wadzi, I'm going to give you an opportunity to give us your introduction. So I like to start off usually with asking my guests to just introduce themselves. So imagine you're at a dinner party and the host is the only one who knows you. How would you like her to introduce you?
Vache, I am an intrepid African girl. I am a maverick. I am a nomad. I'm a person who is interested in people and events, and I love traveling. So I studied finance. As I was saying to you, I studied finance at the University of Maryland, College Park. I did all of my secondary education, primary and secondary education in Zimbabwe, Dominican convent. I started at the Dominican convent in Gweru. Then I went to Mutare. I was the only Black girl at Mutare. And then I went to Harare, where we were then joined, because it was during the war, we were then joined by several other Black girls. So I'm a maverick. I'm different. I always grew up in a multicultural environment, in the sense that working or going to school at a multiracial school at a time when we were still in apartheid in Rhodesia, um, I got closer to people of so many different nationalities. So I ended up in my comfort zone in the United Nations. So I've been working in the United Nations for several years now. I started out in UNHCR, which is the refugee in Zimbabwe. I worked with Mozambican and South African refugees. I then went into the NGO world. I crossed over to Mozambique, lived in Mozambique, worked in Mozambique. I love new spaces. Then I moved back to Zimbabwe, then moved to Singapore, Rome. I went to school in the US. I'm currently living in Rome. So, and I'm currently speaking to you from New York. So you can tell that I love traveling. I love getting on a plane. I even like plain food. I know people who don't like plain food. I love plain food. So that's me. I'm a mother of two. My son is 31 this year. My daughter's 27. I'm a divorcee. I've lived with HIV for 33 years. I was diagnosed in 1992. So you can imagine people were dying. And I'm an author. My new book is just out. It's called Stepping into Wadzi: Lessons from My Life. So that's who I am. I'm a maverick. I'm everything. If I were a man, I'd be a Renaissance man.
Wazi, that is an fascinating life story, a fascinating introduction. You did way better than I did. And yeah, pleasure to meet you. I feel like I've known you all my life with everything you've shared with us. Thank you for being vulnerable and sharing everything about your life.
It's a pleasure. My favorite expression is be you and do you authentically. The world will adjust.
I agree, and I love that saying. The world will adjust. You can never adjust and be comfortable, but the world has to adjust to you.
I love it.
Now, I want to talk about how you became this global leader. What inspired you to dedicate your career to human rights, gender equity, and community development?
I've always been an activist. When I was in Form 4, which is 16, I was I volunteered to work with Jairus Giri. So I used to teach swimming to people with disabilities. And they gave me a whole new perspective about being different and how the world perceives people who are different. And when I came back to Zimbabwe after concluding my degree in finance, I got to Zimbabwe and Zimbabwe was not ready for finance yet. And when I talk about finance, I'm talking about stocks and shares. So, and what was there was banking. We had a great banking sector, but we had not started finance. I got home in 1989. You will see, and if you follow people like Nigel Chanakira, Harold Mvuti, these were they brought finance to Zimbabwe. It happened 10 years after I got home. So I then joined the development world. And it completely, everything that I thought I loved came together. I could be an activist, I could help people. And so I've been doing that ever since. I started at UNHCR. I left the UN for a while, went into international non governmental organizations, INGOs as they're called. I know a lot of people don't like acronyms, so I try not to use acronyms. And then I did some consulting, ran a personal business. I love doing my own entrepreneurship, by the way. Consulting was the most I've ever made in my life. But then I was a mother, so I had to go back and think about my children's future. So that's when I joined the Food and Agriculture Organization as an economist. And within that, I was doing economic and financial analysis for projects that are provided that are grants or loans from the World Bank or any other international financing institution. I was in my element. I had combined my finance with helping people, and I would travel to the most exotic places. I've been to Samoa, I've been to Tajikistan, I've been to almost every country in Africa except Francophone Africa. So I've traveled extensively. I've been in Europe. So this has taken me to places, and it's taken me to agricultural places, not the capitals. So I've really combined my love of helping people, my love of community economic development, because I love money and finance, and my love of activism together. And then at the pinnacle of my sort of financial and economic career, I then went into staff representation because I realized that a lot of staff do not have a voice. And being in a multicultural environment like the UN, the United Nations, it's so difficult for some people who come from places where they are not allowed to speak. And I speak as a woman, even as a Shona woman. Women are meant to serve. They are not supposed to lead. They are supposed to lead from behind. So when people have issues, very few are able to step up and articulate them. And I've been given the gift of activism. I've been given the gift of the gab. I've been given the gift of the ability to write. So I just stepped up and decided to do staff representation, advocacy, defending staff rights. So my current position is the president of the Federation of International Civil Servants Association, and we represent over 40,000 staff in the United Nations.
That's quite a journey. And when you were talking, I was thinking about how you started off from inclusion, from the vulnerable, and right full circle to serving those who are underrepresented.
Exactly.
So, talking about your multicultural experience, which you mentioned in your answer just now,
Mm-hmm.
let's try and link that to the future of work, which is like, on everybody's mind right now. And
Yes.
so it's really rapidly evolving. Technological advancements,
Yes.
there's remote work, shifting global dynamics, and your position puts you in a really unique place.
Yes.
What do you see as the biggest opportunities and challenges for professionals in this new era?
Firstly, I think fear is the biggest challenge. There's so much mis and disinformation around AI. I always say, or artificial intelligence. I always say to people, artificial intelligence is only as clever as the humans who created it. So artificial intelligence needs humans to work. What we are experiencing, Vache, is the fourth industrial revolution. So the one that we know is the one with trains and automobiles and cars and that sort of thing. This now is the technological revolution. And what I would say to anyone who is going into this field, and remember, I'm a mother, so I also had to contend with this from the aspect of my children. Some things will never change. The things that will never change are that people will always need food. People will always need plumbing, electricians. They will always need hands on. And look at the areas that are tangible. We've moved so fast because we got into technology. I was saying to you earlier, I was BBC, born before computers. And so when I went to school, there were no computers. We went to libraries for information. Now I've said to my daughter, just Google it. Stop stressing me. Google it because everything is on Google. But one thing I know for sure, having lived in Zimbabwe, is that when the electricity goes, you have to go back to basics. You need to know how to make a fire. You need to know how to cook on a fire. You need to have all those basics. So, what I would say to somebody going into the working world now, look at the practical skills. Look at a combination of where technology works and where practicality works. You can always sell a cabbage. You cannot always sell a digital creator. So always try and combine your practical skills with things that people will always need and use technology to make you the most efficient, the most up to date at whatever you're doing, and the most relevant. I work in an area where, imagine that there's 193 member states, and sometimes it goes up to 195 depending on which agency recognizes some states and doesn't. So you are in competition with 8.2 billion people on this world, on this earth. So what makes you special? What makes you stand out? The only thing that makes you stand out is your God-given talent. Now, when I say that, what do I mean by God-given talent? A lot of people get into jobs because of parental pressure. So their father wanted them to be a doctor, a nurse, an engineer. You know, Africans, it's always doctor, nurse, engineer, or anything that's there. If you're a musician, creative artist, how are you going to make money? These are all the questions. But if you look at the people who followed their passion, they make money. So the first thing I would say to anyone is, firstly, identify your skill sets. Identify your critical skill sets and use those to become the best you are at that. I always look at the outliers. The outliers are people like Elon Musk, right? Billionaires. The people who run Amazon or Usain Bolt. Those are the outliers. I'm sure Usain can tell you that when he was running, he was beaten by a lot of people. What he did was he did things consistently over time and invested in his skill. That's what you need to do if you want to be employed and employable or an entrepreneur. I can tell you, I always say to people, I made the most money when I was an entrepreneur, but it's also the highest area of risk. I left entrepreneurship because my children were young and I wanted to educate them. So I wanted a steady income. So I left the risky environment where I was making a lot of money, and I substituted it with a regular employed job. I loved entrepreneurship. I would go back to entrepreneurship at the drop of a hat, but I would not do it at the expense of having brought lives into this world, which I needed to ensure that I would be able to comfort, succor, and help to become, civic-minded individuals. So the future of work has not changed. There's nothing new under the sun. The only thing that's new is technology. Just if you apply the fundamentals and basics of one, what is my passion? I can invest in my passion. I can invest in something. And what I mean by that is something that comes easily to you. When you see, some people are so good at admin. I hate admin. But there's some people who can manage and implement projects like it's their job, I can't do that. That's your passion. That's what you do well. Get better at it. There are people who are actuarial scientists who can calculate when you're going to die and all that stuff. They love it. If you engage an actuarial scientist, you'll be bored to death, but they will be in their element. You need to do things that give you, joy. I love money. I've been doing finance. I follow, I even follow financial podcasts just because I like them, right? So identify the things that give you that spark, that joy, that everything. The second thing is invest in yourself. You have to learn. You have to grow in your art. So if you look at AI, we need to look at the jobs that are going to be replaced by AI. And there's a UN agency that will show you that. There's also the Europeans have done studies on the types of jobs that are going to go. Anything that you can automate is going to go, right? So as somebody looking at the job market, think about, okay, if that's going to be automated, I shouldn't really invest in it. I should look at the areas which will not be able to go. So for example, somebody who is an accounts clerk, that's going to go because AI can count better than you. They can reconcile better than you. Somebody who's an interpreter is going to go, right? Because AI can interpret. We've now got even these headphones that can, translate into several languages. What they don't have is an interpreter for technology, is for a certain, very obscure, maybe nuclear scientific language type thing. So if you're a good interpreter, craft yourself to become a specialist in a certain field. So all I'm saying is look at AI and look at where you can hone in to capture a niche. The other thing that people need to learn is to pivot. You might study one thing, but you may never use that thing in the way that you thought you were going to use it. I studied finance, but I told you I ended up working for refugees first before I came back to finance. You have to be able to pivot. The beauty of going to school is to learn how to pivot. Change is the only constant in employment or entrepreneurship. And the only thing that will make you rise above others is the ability to change and transform, and the ability to bear the pain and the risk of change and transformation. I think I've been talking a lot, Vache. I'll stop there for a while and let's have another conversation.
3 things hit out at me. Nothing new under the sun, even though we feel like we are being bombarded by new things every day. There is nothing new under the sun. People will still need to eat. Passion, find your passion and purpose, and pivoting, learning to pivot. And change being the only constant. I was thinking about season 1 of Humor Career Insights. We spent a lot of time talking about change. And listeners, if you would like to have a listen in to season 1, there is a lot there about navigating and transitioning in times of change. So let's talk about international civil servants in particular, adapting to this changing landscape of work. Anything specific for international civil servants?
Absolutely, Vache. We are being decimated at the moment. As you know, there are some member states who've reduced their funding. And these member states have every right, it's their sovereign right to put their money where they want to. It's affecting the UN and international development. You know that USAID is practically closed down. 80%, I think 10,000 people have lost their jobs in USAID. The same is happening in the United Nations. Again, it's about change. It's the United Nations was created 80 years ago, 80. It was created by military people. It was very top down. It was very hierarchical. It was very bureaucratic. We needed this change. And I say we because it's happened in the private sector already. Uber completely revolutionized the way we catch taxis. The Uber Eats revolutionized the way we order food. Amazon, during COVID, revolutionized the way we receive everything from clothes to furniture to anything. The UN needed to be revolutionized. So I don't see it as a threat. I see it as an opportunity. I see it as a huge opportunity for the UN to grow and modernize. And what it'll mean, and again, we've got to remember, what does the UN do? The UN provides humanitarian aid to people in crisis on one hand, and it also provides technical expertise, and it provides a convening platform for member states, even if they're at war. So those things will not change. People will still need food delivered, water delivered. They will still need the UN to provide them with technological advances. I work for the Food and Agriculture Organization. Right now, there's going to be a locust infestation in East and Southern Africa. You will need the technologies to stop locusts infesting. That's not going to stop. So the relevance of the UN is not going to change. What is going to change is the way the UN does business. What is going to change is the same thing that happened to people during COVID is now, these are the trickle down effects of COVID, that governments have less resources and they're asking people to do more with less. So what I would say to the international development worker is the same thing I've said before. Look at the niches. Look at the places where your skills can have value, We will always be giving food and distributing if you're a peacekeeper or in humanitarian aid. If you're in development, you will also always be helping governments develop policies. Right now, the biggest policies are going to be around the use of AI in government sectors, the use of drones in government sectors. How do you continue to give privacy within the context of this open, space that AI is? All of these things are not changing. Vache, I can prove my concept. What has not changed under the sun is it's all the same. There's nothing new. What needs to change is the way we do business. And that's it. So an international development worker needs to look at themselves now and think, okay, how do I pivot to suit the needs of this evolution? And how do I pivot to do less with more? So become more efficient, which is where you use technology while providing the stuff that AI cannot provide. AI cannot be creative. AI cannot talk to a person like I'm talking to you. AI cannot think outside the box like humans do. AI cannot innovate. AI can only collate the stuff that we have at a faster pace. So, as humans, you still have a right. And also remember that the most advanced economies are very few. If you look at the least developed countries, we haven't even caught up to half the stuff that people are talking about here. Why do we call it first world problems? There are people who don't have a smartphone in this world, and it's more of the world than those who do. So imagine that smartphone has not even caught up to the person walking in the desert somewhere or walking at a village somewhere, anywhere in the world. So we've got to remember that this is only affecting a few people in the world. The rest of the world is going on without smartphones. I hope that makes sense.
Mm, it certainly does. And I really like your glass half full perspective. We tend to look on the other side and you're like, oh my gosh, they've emptied half the glass. But there is still something left. And those opportunities, the niche, finding that niche, I think, thank you very much. You've really shared quite a few tips here that I'm sure our civil servants, our international civil servants listening will find very handy. Um, let's talk about particular skills. Any specific skills that you think will be critical for professionals to remain relevant and impactful in the future of work?
Not really, because if you think about it, imagine before we never knew that motivational speakers would be paid a lot of money to motivate people. We never knew that the TikTokers could make millions TikToking. I'm not a prophecy. I'm not an oracle. What I do know is if you have a skill and you hone it and you use technology, you can be the best in that field, or you can be the innovator in that field. The person who designed the aeroplane innovated. So innovate in whatever field you are. In accounting, innovate. How do you find out where people are putting their taxes when they're trying to do tax evasion? Innovate there. Find the areas where you are the best at what you do. I would never say to especially to young people, go into this field at this time of my life. I wouldn't say that because I have no idea. If you imagine, Lache, if I had asked my mom about computers and computing science, when both her and me were born before computers, could she have told me, Kutiwadzi, go into computer science because that's the future? She couldn't. Nobody can predict the future. What I can predict is human ingenuity and human creativity. That I know that humans, if you have to eat, you'll find a way to make money. So that's what I would invest in. I would invest in creators. I would invest in people that have ideas. I would invest in places. Even look at the ordinary things. If you look at doctors now, we now have robots that can do laser surgery. We have machines that can do precision agriculture. But you still need people to harvest. People still want hand-picked cherries from I don't know where, right? Hand-picked. People still want jerseys knitted and crocheted, not machine done. So just harness whatever skill you have and become that niche. There are 8.2 billion people in the world. Somebody will buy something.
Innovation, creativity, and ideas. My takeaways from what you just said. And someone will buy something. Technology. I was thinking when you're talking about technology and how both you and your mom were born before computers. And I was thinking about my 7-year-old. The other day she was asking me, how many bones does an adult have? And then I said, I'm not sure. And she said, okay, I'll just ask Google. Google it.
There you go. You see? Google it. I hate people who say that Google makes us it makes us dumber. It doesn't. I love Google because I used to cram all this useless stuff that's taking up space in my head somewhere, and I don't even remember it and I don't even use it. Google makes me intentional about the stuff I want to know. I don't need calculus taking up space in my head that I don't even know how to do calculus equations anymore. But if I want to know distance, speed, time, whatever, if I want to know the distance between one little village and another little village, Google will do it for me. Google Maps will tell me how long it takes for me to travel from Manhattan to Roosevelt Island. So why would I need to calculate that? So it's freeing up time for me to do the things that I can do, like speaking to you, right? So we've got to look at technology as the addition that gives us time to free up time to do what we really want to do.
That is true. And now we can ask ChatGPT and DeepSeek. I was doing something, I was asking DeepSeek something the other day, and it says to me, think of me as your new virtual assistant.
Exactly.
So we can use this new technology merely to support to support our passions.
I completely agree, Vache. Exactly. You've just given me an example of what DeepSeek, ChatGPT. How do I write a speech that will make an impact, right? And ChatGPT will know better than me because it's seeing hundreds of thousands of speeches and seeing the reactions to it, right? So that's it. Use technology, use it to be a tool, which is what it's meant to be.
So we talked about some of the unique challenges international civil servants face in the future of work. Now, I am interested to find out from you, and I'm sure there's, our listeners out there who are interested to find out how organizations like FICSA can support them in these challenges, in overcoming these challenges.
So FICSA is an umbrella organization of staff organizations. So each individual staff union, right, is what I represent. I represent the unions, not the individual staff members, right? So the way that FICSA can help, like in the UN, we are the ones who advocate at the highest levels of, governance for staff in the UN. So my job is to advocate, defend, and represent staff rights at the highest levels of governance. Governance both from member states and governance within the management of each separate entity. The UN is a very strange creature. The UN that people think about is the UN Secretary General, right? When he speaks, everybody thinks this is the whole UN. No, that's the UN Secretariat. FAO has its own governing body, the Food and Agriculture Organization. So the UN is made up of the Secretariat, which is the UN General Assembly, and then you have specialized agencies. So you have specialized agencies that work in nuclear, that work in food, that work in various aspects of life and livelihood. Then you have funds and programs. World Food Program is a program, right? So the Global Fund is not a UN entity, but it's a fund that is funded through some of the UN. It's affiliated with the UN, right? So this is why when you look at what we do or what I do, I advocate for all those people in the different types of UN agencies, specialized agencies, funds, and programs, right? So, what we can do at FICSA is to represent the staff at, at the global level, for what their wants and needs are. But at a local level, there are always UN agencies, right? There's an FAO in Zimbabwe. There's a WFP in Zimbabwe. So people should try to get as much information. All of these are technical agencies. I don't know if people know that these agencies, why I'm called an international civil servant, is because, like your national government civil servants, the UN belongs to everybody. You should not feel afraid to walk into your local FAO and ask for information, the same way you would walk into the Ministry of Agriculture to ask for information. That's what the Food and Agriculture Organization does at your local level. It helps you understand, it brings international to national. So the UN is made up of every single person on this planet. We are just the civil servants that make it all go together. We administer, we provide technical expertise, we provide guidance, we develop policies. That's what we do at the global level for issues that are globally impactful. So, for example, if you look at why do you have, standards for food hygiene, right? That is something that's developed at an international level to stop people getting things like salmonella and things like that, right? All of these things is what the UN does. We do what national people do, but at a higher global international level.
That's insightful. I had never thought that the UN belongs to everybody. That's why you're called international civil servants. It's the light bulb moment for me.
See? That's fantastic.
So, talking about balancing the demands for work, I like to always bring this aspect of wellness into every conversation, and I'm interested to find out how you think international civil servants can, right now, with the demands of everything that's going on, changes and the demands of their work, and most of them are in high stress environments, post conflict zones, but there's all these changes. How can they balance those demands to ensure personal well being?
I was actually thinking about that this morning. I made a post on my Facebook, and I'll read to you what I said. Sorry, this. Do not get caught up in the frenetic madness. Gather yourself, be in and with yourself, protect your peace and your sanity. Watch, listen, find the pauses. You will navigate the madness. So, what do I mean by this? You are being attacked from everywhere, right? I haven't owned a television since 2016 because I don't want that ticker tape on the bottom of CNN or Al Jazeera or whatever telling me how badly my world is going, right? What you consume, you absorb. I do not absorb toxicity. And at the moment, the world is toxic. So I have walked away from toxicity. So what do I do? Yes, I work in a very high stress environment. That's an environment I have chosen to work in. So I've created the boundaries that allow me to say when it's too much, I stop. I tell people, I will answer you tomorrow. You know what's become the problem is this instant gratification. When somebody sends you a message, you instantly want to respond to it. And if you don't, you even say, "Oh, I'm so sorry I didn't get to that." No, they don't know that you couldn't get it. What if you were working? What if you were traveling? What if you don't have to say sorry. You answer it when you answer it. So the way, and I am a huge mental health and well-being advocate because I had a burnout. I actually went into a psychiatric ward. So it's so important for me to manage what I ingest and what I digest. And by that, I mean, I do not let toxic people, toxic things, toxic digital content, toxic whatever get into my space. I only have two social media, primary social media, LinkedIn and Facebook. My Facebook feeds into my Instagram because, Instagram is apparently happening according to my children. But it feeds, any post I make just feeds directly into Instagram. I don't have TikTok. I don't have Threads. I don't have any of these other things that would take my time. And I manage my time. There are 24 hours in a day, 8 to sleep, 8 to work, and 8 to follow your passion. And my passion is not TikTok. My passion is not Facebook. My passion is reading, listening to podcasts, writing. So I spend the rest of my 8 hours in creativity. So what I would say to people is budget your time wisely. Not only budget your time, remember, I love finance, I love money. So budget your time wisely, but also budget your body wisely, right? Make sure you exercise well, make sure you drink water, make sure you eat nutritious food. I told you I've had HIV for 33 years. And yet, can you tell I'm HIV positive? Unless I tell you, you don't know, right? Exactly. Because I eat nutritious food. I budget my time. I sleep a lot. I'm not one of those old people in menopause saying I've got insomnia. No, that's not my portion. I'm sorry. I sleep. So what people need to do is to manage their time in a way that there are people who have a lot of time, who can do a lot with less time and less sleep. That's fine. Manage your time around that. I'm not saying you have to manage your time like me, but what I am saying is do not let the toxic influences come into your soul. Because once they get into your soul, that's why you say my glass is half full, right? As opposed to half empty. Remember, as human beings, it's a survival mechanism to see the negative. That's how our brains are wired. If even if I said 10 beautiful things to you, Vachi, and then I said something negative, you would remember that was, you said this to me that was negative. You would never remember the 10 positive things I said. So this is why it's our biological function to look at negativity. I don't look for negativity. I look for things that feed my soul. You are a human, you're a soul. Sorry, you're an eternal soul having a human experience. Keep your soul, which is fragile, as as like an egg, you know? And that's how I would say your well-being is very important. Prioritize you. Prioritize your well-being. Everything else should be secondary to that.
Wadzi, firstly, I really just want to say thank you for being vulnerable and for sharing your experience with us, because it hits a lot more when someone can tell you that, I suffered from burnout and this is what I learned from it. And I just need to summarize this because there's really a lot in there. So I got 8 hours of sleep, 8 hours of work, 8 hours of following your passion, which is you must be creative and budget your time and your body well. In terms of your body, eat well, sleep well, exercise well, feed your soul. In essence, prioritize you. I like that so much. I think it will be my theme for the rest of this year.
I love it. I'm almost an influencer. That's what I told my son. I said to my son, I'm almost an influencer. I'm almost an
I
influencer.
think you are. I want to talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion because that
Right.
seems to be a thread throughout your career, starting from teaching kids with disabilities how to swim. And
Right.
they are critical to the future of work. How can international organizations ensure they're truly inclusive? Particularly, I know your area, gender equity, and and, representation from underrepresented regions.
The beauty of representation across everything is you learn so much. What my travels have taught me is what I learned at school about the Pacific, right? Never told me that I would find black people who look like me in the Pacific, right? It was always exotic. It was always Moana and, cartoons. And then when I got there, I found people like me with the same issues as me, right? Who just wanted to take their kids to school, have a decent job, lead a decent life, and, manage their spirituality. Once you break down these barriers that are self-inflicted, these are man-made. Our blood is the same. When you go down to it, nobody asks you what color the blood was. They ask you, what's your blood type, right? So people need to remember that these superficial coverings of our faces and you're born black, and I cannot control where I was born. I cannot control the color that I am, right? What I can control is how I accept and embrace and tolerate diversity, how I accept and embrace and tolerate otherness. I actually like to come close to people who have an opposing view to me because I'm always like, if I'm talking to somebody who thinks and talks like me, I'm reinforcing my bias, right? I'm not understanding what the other side is seeing. So I always seek out the extremists. I always seek out the people with a different view because they also give me an argument to argue for against them, right? But if I don't interact with people that are not like me, how do I know that I'm not like them? So for me, it's so important to go to people who are othered, right? To go to Do you honestly think that somebody who is LGBTQ plus would choose to be LGBTQ plus, right? Just choose it. It's such it's dangerous. In some countries, it's fatal to be gay, right? And you think that person who's born in that country would say, "Oh yeah, by the way, I'm just gonna choose to be gay." They don't have a choice. The same way I was born black. There's nothing I can do. It even with skin lightening, I'll still be black, right? So this is why I'm saying not everybody has a choice about where they were geographically born, what color they were born, what religion they were born into. All of that, you have no choice. What you do have a choice is tolerance to be a good human, right? We're all part of one human race. So if it's one human race, it means that I'm related to everybody in one way or another, right? I think I don't know how many things of separation. I can't remember. We have to Google that. But so I honestly believe that the more we interact, the more we will understand the other, the more we can then work with that other, and the more we find similarities more than differences.
Understanding otherness.
Yes.
We are running out of time, and I do not want to let you go without talking about your book. You have authored a book, Stepping into Wadzi, Lessons from My Life. Radical Self-Love and Radical Self-Compassion. What a title. Can you share a key lesson from your book that resonates with the theme of thriving in the future of work?
The only thing that matters in this world, and why I say it's radical, is because so many people think they're not good enough. So many women, especially, have to buy, they have to put BBLs and all sorts of things, thinking that they will be better by doing something. The reason that I wrote this book, is because I walked away from things that hurt me and I walked into loving myself. That's why it's radical self-love. It's because I chose me above all my experiences, above my 58 years, above becoming a divorcee, above living with HIV, above going into a psychiatric institution, above suffering from PTSD, right? I walked into myself and I fell in love with myself and I dated myself. And it's radical because right now, Vache, as you said, I'm authentic, I'm vulnerable. I am what you see is what you get. This is Wadzi. And so my book is about first, forgive yourself for the experiences that you've had and the way you reacted, right? You had only the amount of information you had when you were making those decisions. Forgive yourself. So that's the radical self compassion. Then there's the radical self acceptance. There's always a shadow side to your beautiful self, right? I know I'm impatient. I know I don't suffer fools gladly. I know I have a problem with stupid, right? I will say it because that's who I am. And I won't apologize for it because I'm 58. You're not going to change me, right? So I accept myself for who I am. It doesn't mean that every day I'm not trying to be better. It doesn't mean that I'm not trying to develop patience. But by nature, I'm impatient. By nature, I'm an overachiever, right? So I have accepted and inculcated that into my spirit. And I accept Wadzi as she is right now, right? I'm very chunky and chubby. I accept that. Partially, it's because of the medication. I take HIV drugs. I have taken antidepressants. I went through depression. I've had a lot. This body has had to protect me from a lot. So I thank Wadzi for this body because she was protecting me. She was giving me the ample girth to manage what I needed to manage. So, and that's where I come to after radical acceptance, radical self love. I love Wadzi for who she is. And the book is about the journey I took to come to these nuggets of wisdom.
Wow. Radical self-love and radical self-compassion. I totally get it now. But Wadzi, you have to come back to Humor Career Insights. I am thankful that you gave me this time, slotted me in your busy, busy time, but you have got to come back. So, listeners, thank you for listening in today. And thank you so much to Wadzi for joining us and sharing with us all that experience. She will be back. Until next time, stay inspired.